Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is the Icelandic Miscellaneous Tales. Please don't forget to hit that like button, it's completely free and I really appreciate it. This story is called Strike It While It's Still on My Nose. Once upon a time there was a king and a queen in their palace and an old man with his crone in a nearby cottage. One day the old couple bought a keg full of butter, which they intended to keep for the winter. But they were at a loss where to store it, so that no one could steal its contents. Finally, they agreed that they would ask for its safekeeping at the king's court. They put the keg in place themselves and tied a seal over it. Time now passed until fall. Then the old woman began to crave the butter, and she soon thought up a scheme so she could get it early. One sunny day, she got up early, went into her husband, and told him she had been summoned to the palace to present a baby at the font, and she would have to go. The man said that was a matter of course. The crone then dressed in a great hurry and went to the palace. There, she said she was supposed to get a pinch of butter from the keg, and people believed her, and they let her into the storeroom. The woman took a generous layer from the top of the keg and returned home. The man asked for what name they had given the infant at the palace. They named her Topsy, a true little lady, she said. When the old crone had finished what she had taken, she said to her husband one day, "They're summoning me at the palace again." The man asked for what purpose. "To present a baby at the font," she said. "Go then," said the old man. The woman went to the king's court, saying as she had before, that she was to get some butter from the keg. This time she took butter as far down as the middle, and when she returned home the man asked what the child was called. "Middle is her name, a marvel of a girl," she told him. When the woman had finished this batch, she informed her husband, "They're asking me again to come to the palace and present a baby at the font." "Go then," said the old man. Off she went to the palace, saying she was supposed to get some butter, but only a bit, as before. Now she took as much that she could see the groove in the staves. When she returned home again, the man asked the name of the baby. Groove, they called her, a gracious child, she said. A long time passed, and the old woman was out of butter once more. Then she said to her spouse, "They're asking for me again at the palace." "For what purpose?" the man inquired as usual. "To present a baby at the font," said the crone. "Then go," he did say. At the palace, the old woman again gave the story of her having to get some butter. This time she took all that was left in the keg. On her return, the man asked her the child's name. "They named him Bottom, a brawny lad," said the old woman. Time now wore on until late winter. By then the couple's household began to feel shortage, so the man said to his wife that they had better get their keg of butter from the king's court. The old woman agreed, and they both went to claim their keg. It was given to them, and when they saw the seal had been tampered with, they rolled the keg home to their cottage. Then the man opened it and found it was totally empty. More than a little taken aback, he asked his wife how on earth that could be. She acted no less surprised than he was and pretended not to know what kind of trick had been played on them. But just at that moment the old woman saw a large blue bottle that had flown into the keg. "There's the confounded thief," she said, pointing at the fly. She pointed it out right to her husband. "Just look at that scoundrel of a fly. It must have eaten up all our butter," she added. The old man saw that this must be the case. Enraged, he got hold of the sledgehammer, which he used to beat stockfish with, intending to knock the thief dead, be the fly, of course. He locked the cottage so the fly couldn't escape, and then began pursuing it, striking out left and right, and breaking everything in sight, but he could never hit the fly. Finally exhausted, the man sat down, seething with anger. Then the blue bottle came and alighted right on his nose. The man asked the woman to thwack the fly, telling her, "Strike it while it's still on my nose," which has since become a saying. The crone raised the sledgehammer and brought it down with all the strength she could muster on the old man's nose, knocking him dead on the spot. But the blue bottle escaped and has yet to be thwacked, and the crone is still keening over her old husband. So she murdered him, basically. That's interesting, isn't it, guys? Let's read the next one. The next one's called "You're Lucky, God, That I Can't Reach You." Never heard of this one either. Let's see what it's about. A man and his wife lived on a farm. One summer they had a great deal of hay in the field, most of it half dry or more, but it looked like rain. So together with their hired hands they went to gather the hay before the squalls would soak it. Although all did their utmost, it just wasn't enough, and the rain descended upon them, while a considerable spread of hay was still left. Any farther effort was absolutely useless. This made the farmer's wife very angry, both at the rain and at him who gives the rain. She grabbed her rake by the head, close to the head, and jabbed it upward toward the heaven as far as she could, exclaiming, "You're lucky, God, that I can't reach you." The man let no such angry words fall at the time, but it became obvious the following day that he too had been offended by the rain. That day, as it happened, was bright and sunny, and when he entered the bastofa in the morning to eat his breakfast, the sun was shining right into his face. The man, short shrift of it, pulled off his pants and hung them over the window, saying, "You didn't shine so brilliantly on my chew of hay yesterday." The end. I have no idea what that's about, but apparently it's about a saying regarding the fly, so I don't know, guys. It's very bizarre, that one. The next one is called "I Wonder If My Boots Will Go Out Today." The most miserable hovel in the Helgafell parish is called Bum. It never sees sun or summer. A man once lived there, a vagrant creature by the name of Arnie. He was known as Arnie of Bum. One day he equipped himself with food and new footwear, loaded his nags, and set off for south so far that no one heard of Arnie of Bum. He finally came to a large and stately parsonage, where he did stay the night. The parson had a pretty young daughter. When Arnie woke up and looked at the weather in the morning, he muttered aloud to himself, "I wonder if my boots will go out today." He repeated the same or similar words 3 consecutive mornings. This did not escape the parson and his daughter, who surmised the man had to be some bigwig from the west. To make a long story short, Arnie proposed to the parson's daughter, and she was married to him. After the wedding, they were given a pair of good mounts, and they departed for the west. At each large farm on the way, the bride would inquire of her husband, "Is that your farm, dear?" And he would answer, more often obviously than not, "No, not yet." Thus they proceeded for a long, long time, until one night in total darkness they arrived at a hovel half buried in the ground. Here, Arnie dismounted and helped his wife to do the same. "Is that your farm, dearest?" she asked. "Yes," said Arnie. So saying, he knocked on the door. And his mother, a wrinkled old hag, opened, asking who was there. Arnie identified himself to his mother, but he obviously did introduce his wife too. He was called inside, for it was so dark he couldn't see his hand in front of his face. "Light the candles on the gold candelabra." "I can't do that," said the old one. "Then light one in the silver lantern," Annie told her. "I can't do that either," the crone replied. "Well, light the goddamn fish oil lamp then," he yelled. "That I'll do," said the hag, running to do so. Of the married life of Arnie and the parson's daughter, nothing has been recorded, but about Arnie of Bun there is the following verse. "Arnie of Bun, ever rotten, utterly base and mean, a pilferer's lair in his lodgment, where the lights of the sun is never, ever seen." Again, I don't know. This is the first time that I've heard these stories myself, so I haven't got a clue, but it's interesting. So the next story is called "Now I Should Laugh." Once there was a married couple who had three daughters. Their names are not recorded, but when they were old enough, they all married, and shortly after that, both parents died, leaving their estate to their daughters. Among the other valuables, the couple had obviously collected gold rings over the years, which all the daughters coveted, but they could not agree who should have the gold ring in particular, a special gold ring of their mother's. Finally, they struck a bargain. The one among them who could make the biggest fool of her husband would receive the ring, and they decided to meet at church the following Easter Sunday to compare their tricks. During Lent, the first one began to prepare for Easter by sitting down to spin, but no one could see what it was that she was spinning. Her husband mentioned this to her, asking what she was doing. "Can't you see?" she retorted. "No," he said. "I see you move your hands as if you were spinning, but I don't see any yarn." "What I'm spinning," said the woman, "is gossamer so fine that no one can see it, and I'm going to make you a suit of it to wear at Easter." The husband then dropped the matter. When she had finished spinning, she began to weave the gossamer, and after that she knew her husband would have a suit from it. None of it was ever seen, though, but she had the suit ready for Easter to give to her husband, as she had told him so. As Lent wore on, the second daughter became very downcast and sad. Her husband asked her what was the matter. "I can't bear to see you so ill," she said. "Ill? Me?" said the husband. "On the contrary, I'm in the best of my health." "How can you say that?" said the woman. "You're pale and hollow-eyed, and anybody can see that you're quite sick." The husband wouldn't believe her, and they said no more about it for the time being. Shortly afterward, however, she began to lament again how sick he was, and though he asserted her that he was not, she asked him into going to bed and continued to tell him that he was getting weaker and weaker, while he protested that his health was absolutely fine. This went on until shortly before Easter. Then the woman became absolutely grief-stricken and said to her husband, "Oh, now you're dead." "I'm not," said the husband. "I'm as much alive as you and anybody else." "Oh, yes, you're dead all right," said the woman, weeping her eyes out, and she kept this up until she convinced him that he really was dead. Then he was laid on a bier, and the woman had a coffin made for him to be ready for Easter. It was arranged that he be buried on Easter Sunday. The third daughter was married to a man whose voice was so dreadful and greatly that no one could stand him singing. When Easter Sunday arrived, the first daughter came up to her husband and began to touch and stroke him, and she fussed about him, all the while telling him that she was dressing him in his gossamer suit. The husband said he felt naked, but she replied it was merely because the suit was so exquisite. The daughter, married to the dead man, had him coffined, but left him a small hole at the head through which he could see. That's done. He was taken to the church. The third daughter said to her husband, "You'll have to sing in the church today, my dear." He replied that the congregation would only break up laughing. She of all people should know, he said. "But everyone thinks you sing beautifully," answered his wife, and she kept measuring him of it until he began to believe it. So once in church, he sang, and he sang forcefully, while the rest of the congregation looked at one another, and all of them did giggle, just as he had said.